Okay. So for today, we are looking at welcome to today's meeting. Today we're looking at speaking, and I know we looked at speaking before, but today is the 1.2 speaking lesson. So it's a little bit different content than what we saw in the previous presentation for speaking and speech. So for our table of contents, it's pretty similar to what we've done before. We're doing introduction, like reminders and stuff. We're gonna go over generally how to teach speaking. Then we're going to look at our speaking sample lesson before finishing it off with resources and opening up breakout rooms. For today's reminders, normal reminders there are for the tutors oh wait, sorry, I haven't even shared the link yet. For the tutors, make sure that you are attending at least one mentorship meeting a month. It's recommended that you attend every other week. So I'll give you guys first the link and I'll show you the schedule. So the upcoming schedule. So today we have a meeting, and then the next meeting is going to be on the 31st. And that's going to be the same content as today. So tutors do not have to, it's recommended that you just attend today, and then you don't have to come on the 31st. And then the next presentation that has new content is going to be on February 6th. So it's recommended that you come today, and then you don't have to come 31st, and then you come again the 6th or the 14th. And then there's the launching of the APP Masterclass, which the link is in the slides. It's tutoring English. You can be an APP tutor without being in the masterclass. But if you want, as a tutor, you can apply to be in the masterclass, where the only extra requirement is that you are fluent in both English and the specific Asian language that your student speaks. So that's the added thing about the masterclass. But so you can apply to be that if you want to. But the special thing today is that there's a speaker series that's happening today at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's going to be 4 hours from now. And it's going to follow the co-founders of Changes Zine, which is a youth-run magazine dedicated to promoting new ideas and encouraging others to try new things. It's going to be run by the co-founders Angela and Eric, and they will be sharing like inside info into the development of their magazine, their mistakes, what they've learned, and so on. For tutor policies, you can check out the APP info document for the policies, and then just make sure that your tutor contract is turned in to your CD, or your tutoring will be terminated. Okay. Getting into teaching speaking, which is typed very oddly. Generally, so this isn't the sample lesson. We're going to get into our intro for it. Oh, sorry. There.
Okay, so introduction to speaking. So number one, listen. As we hear words being pronounced and used in sentences, we absorb info that we may store for future use. Number two, practice. When speaking, you can rely on the words and concepts you are most comfortable with, mastering these as you build on your language abilities. Number 3, embrace the mistakes. Mistakes show that you're making the effort to improve. So you can also learn from your mistakes as well. Number 4, break your barrier of nervousness and speak out loud. The best way to improve your speaking is to practice out loud with other people, like having simple conversations with others.
Getting into speaking content per your student's frequency level. So novice, you're going to be looking at simple word statements and sentences, simple sounds and pronunciations. You're going to want to focus your lessons on proper flow of speech broken into parts. And you can take a look at English media and imitating English speaking. So you can probably utilize a lot of videos and audios to like show examples to your student. For intermediate, you can focus more on establishing longer sentences, focus more on fluency, and the flow of words are more clear, and you can develop the ability to speak from script more fluently. And yeah, you can just like have them read from a script and like make sure to like communicate like annotation and denotation and all of that, and just like the flow of speaking. Advanced complex sentences and pronunciation, emphasis and enunciation, fluency in reading and speaking text. So it's very similar to intermediate. Again, you can focus more on text-based speaking rather than your student becoming more like independent with their words, just like more instead of more I can't think of the word. But like without a script, instead of just you saying something and them prompting a response without any script, you'll want to focus more on the script instead of building their internal dictionary of responses. And then finally, superior mastery in complex sentence and sequences and in fluency in speaking them. Yeah, so complex dialogues and fluency, natural emphasis and enunciation, and then ability to speak on their own, no scripts, like I just mentioned, and clearly conveying their ideas off of that.
Okay, so lesson development. You can start by introducing new words and then providing examples of the words being used in short phrases and sentences, and then practice using new words and vocabs in the conversations that you have with your student. And then after, you can start assigning homework.
For speaking tips and strategies, first, phonetics. And I know last presentations we talked about like the phonetic alphabet, and incorporating them into your lessons. So, with phonetics, like when in doubt, sound things out, like based on the individual letters of a word. If your student encounters hesitation when encountering a word or a part of speech, encourage the usage of phonetics. Sometimes they know a word and how it's spelled, but aren't sure of its pronunciation. So it's good to just let them know that they can fall back on sounding it out. Enunciation is crucial to have understandable speech patterns. If students are properly stating words, tell them to use phonetics, or like aren't properly saying words, tell them to use phonetics. Highlight specific area where enunciation is taking a hit, or which words, which letters are more emphasized. which you can very much tell in like the phonetic spelling of a word. So of course you don't need to show your student the phonetic spelling every time. Um, uh, and yeah, R versus R, right? R versus RA, emphasis on the E. Um, you can highlight how the E is silent in each words. So yeah, with R, it's easier to tell the which proper pronunciation it is. I kind of made it confusing. But the proper emphasis is on the A, so R, and you don't really pronounce the E. So that's how you incorporate the silent E where it's not phonetically emphasized. Um Embrace pauses. Don't always jump in every time your student messes up or pauses. Make sure to let them fully get out their sentence before you give your criticism. Um, these are vital learning moments and they encourage your students to critically think about what they're saying. So don't let your student, if they're speaking and then they take a pause to think about something, don't jump in immediately. Like step back and let them get to what they're saying. If they're still coming up empty, then ask them leading questions so they can successfully make it to the next word. Understanding tone. This is a universal thing. Understanding tones helps effectively deliver speaking. If your student is speaking with hesitation, a lot of their sentences can end up sounding like questions. So reframe the discussion and talk about how ending with finality is really important. Or you can ask simple questions like, are you telling me or asking me? Here are some videos that you can use either in your lessons or independently, and then kind of take inspiration from and then incorporate into your lessons. I think both of these videos are better suited to watching independently. Obviously the second one is how to teach speaking, so it probably won't be too useful for your student to watch. But the first one, uh it's essentially like it's a 2 hour long video. It's kind of crazy, but it's these teachers giving advice to ESL students, so not to teachers, giving advice to ESL students on how to improve their speaking. So you could look at this and like take away their tips and then give your student the same tips, or you could tell your student to watch certain sections of this video as homework. So there's a lot you can do with the first video, but the second one is mostly just advice for tutors. Okay, getting into the sample lesson, we're going to start off with the lesson plan and then get into like practices and stuff.
Okay, so here's the lesson plan. Section 1 consists of warming up with simple statements and sentences, slowly starting to develop a sense of familiarity with the pronunciation and sounds. Section 2 consists of just going over different speaking tips and strategies. That way you're able to be introduced to new ways to apply these strategies within your class sessions. Section 3 consists of practicing independently or with someone through homework or anything or conversations, and then repetitively going over these strategies and then having your student ask questions to further their understanding. All right, so practice 1. Show and tell is an easy way of getting to know your student, as well as a stress-free way for students to practice their English speaking and presentation skills. For example, you can ask the student to gather 5 items that are very important to them. Please don't pressure the student into sharing. If they're not comfortable with it, then there's always a new way to practice or another method. Once the student has gathered the items, encourage them to talk about the importance of the items in his or her life. Some tips: be encouraging. It's not really easy presenting, especially in a foreign language. If your student makes grammatical errors during his or her presentation, calmly let them know, and then let the student figure out their grammatical issues themselves, and make sure to be patient and respectful when correcting the student's grammar and speech.
For practice 2, here, this is mostly just, like, conversation between you and your student. A lot of times this will appear, I think, like, as, a tutor, you should be, like, starting every, session with a conversation, but this one focuses more on, like, within the lesson, you can have prompts regarding interests of your student. And this especially incorporates vocabulary that's probably useful for your student if they're if it's regarding to their interests. So, for example, if your student Terry loves animals and has multiple pets, you could um, ask them questions like, "What are your favorite animals? Why is adopting animals important? Do you think students should bring pets into schools?" Um, and each of the colors indicate the frequency level of your student. So, um, your favorite animals, what are your animals? There's more beginner, and then intermediate, and then high. And you can probably in come up with your own questions based off of the formatting of each of these. Um, and it's better to develop a couple of questions so the discussion doesn't become as stagnant. And it's especially good to ask like more deep, like open-ended questions instead of obviously just like yes or no answers. Um, as your student progresses through English fluency, so should their questions. More advanced students aren't going to appreciate low-level questions, so try and respect that. And if they're studying for English tests or standardized tests, stuff like that, it might be wise to start asking students about current events, social structure, etc. Okay. Finally, getting into additional speaking, like homework and the resources.
So here are some homework ideas. Reciting and reading a particular script assigned based on a skill on the skill of the speaker. And then we have question prompts to answer verbally, requiring extended spoken responses for practice. And then listening to English speakers that you can find on YouTube, like TED Talks or anything like that.
For the additional resources, it's mostly just activities and content stuff. And a couple of these links are also from the original presentation. So if you look at these, you might find them familiar. Um, uh, but for the activities, there's speaking situations, where I think it gives you dialogues and speaking prompts, and then ESL games, activities, tutor resources, activities, and then activities and ideas to teach English online. So that one's especially good. And then content info. The first couple, like basics of grammar, parts of speech, and speaking basics, are more like lesson um info that you probably can teach your student in tiers. So like one lesson can be about grammar, incorporating it into speech, parts of speech, speaking basics, etc. And then regular speaking lessons, I think is more curriculum based, and to how to format your lessons, and then how to teach English conversation is pretty straightforward. Um, and that is it. So I'm gonna go ahead, stop my share, open breakout rooms and everything.